You know, there's so many beautiful prayers in the liturgy, and during this holiday, we get to visit a lot of them. In fact, we visit some of them over and over again, but that's okay. So today I want to speak about one of the central prayers in our liturgy. And to be more concise, I want to just speak about one word in that prayer, just one word. Now, I know what you're thinking. How is this rabbi going to talk for 10 minutes about one word? Well, I'm going to be able to talk about this one word because it's so important. It's so important. So the prayer is the Shema. And the one word I want to talk about is listen. You know, it's so interesting that one of the central prayers of our liturgy, there are two central prayers in our liturgy, the Shema and the Amidah. And one of the central prayers in our liturgy begins with the word listen. You know, I don't know a lot, but I do know from what I've studied so far that nothing in the liturgy and nothing in the Torah is random. It's all there for a reason. So why is this word, listen, the first word of one of our key prayers? It's because the word listen is extremely important. In fact, it's one of the keys to making the world a better place. Now, on the surface, I know listening seems pretty easy, right? Your ears are always open. It's not even like your eyes that you can close them. Your ears are always open. You're always hearing things. But listening, really listening, deeply listening to what the world and what people have to say is a much more complex process. There's a teaching about in the Torah, and it's one of my favorite teachings about the Torah. It said that the Torah is made up of black letters with white spaces between the letters and between the lines. And the mystics in our tradition believe that the truth is not in the black letters. That's just the surface truth. The deeper truths of the Torah are in the white spaces and the white lines between the verses. So teachers warn us not to just explore the black letters, but to explore the white spaces in the Torah. And this is a reminder that we need to seek the deeper meanings of the Torah and the deeper meanings of what's said to us when people speak to us. There is always an unspoken agenda in what people tell us. And it's really important to learn to explore that unspoken agenda. That's the white spaces in our lives. So often when I work with people, when I worked with people as a physician and when I work with people now as a spiritual director, as a rabbi, I sometimes find that people just don't really say what they mean. It's simply that they cannot find the words that they want to say. Sometimes it's just too hard to find words. And sometimes there are other reasons. They're ashamed or they feel guilty and they just can't find what they want to say. You know, my teenage son was a classical example of this. You know, we would see at dinner he was really troubled by something. So I bravely climbed the third floor to his room and sat down in his room and asked him what was going on. Nothing came out. So I sat there, sometimes for a half an hour. Sometimes once it was an hour before the gates opened. The safe was open, the tears came out, and he told me what was going on. Unfortunately, this process of deep listening, like I did with my son, is not the default in our daily lives. One reason we don't listen carefully is we're never taught to listen. You know, I have 3 post-college degrees. I have a master's of public health, I have a medical degree, and I have a seminary degree. 3 postgraduate degrees so far. So far. God forbid I should do something else that would kill me. And all these all these instructions I've received over the years, I never was told how to listen carefully to people. Even in medical school, where you think that listening in the exam room is something important to do, not a word, not a word. It was only when I did my chaplaincy residency that I finally was taught how to listen, how to sit and listen to people. And actually, that's the reason I did my chaplaincy residency. I wanted to be a better listener. So there are another number of reasons that people don't listen besides not being taught how to listen. It takes time and effort. You remember the story I told about my teenage son. It took an hour to hear what he said. There's some other impediments to listening. We're all so busy. We're all so busy. It takes time. You have to really dedicate yourself to wanting to hear what other people have to say. And there's one final impediment to good listening. Sometimes we just don't want to hear what people have to say. We don't want to hear because it's painful, or we don't want to hear because we don't like them and we don't want to bother wasting time with them. And sometimes what people say kind of bounces off and doesn't land. I found this all the time when I was a physician. I would tell people what was going on with their diagnosis, and it was so painful, it just bounced off. They couldn't possibly listen to what I said. You know, I'd like to say it's no big deal, so you don't listen, but boy, not listening really has painful consequences. It even has big picture consequences. Unfortunately, a very clever politician in the United States realized that people felt they weren't being heard. So he convinced them that he was really going to listen to them, that he heard all their pain and distress. I hope they're beginning to realize that this was just a technique to get himself elected. In fact, he's not interested in listening at all. He had no intention to ever listen to what was going on with them. And in fact, a lot of their lives have been made worse. So not being able to listen and not being listened to is a big deal. It's a big deal. This holiday season offers us the opportunity to re-envision our lives and to think about how we conduct ourselves each day. Let's talk for a few minutes about how to be better listeners. Well, the first step is to do some internal work and see what is preventing us from listening. You know, one of the things I know about a lot of my friends are they love to help people. They love to help people. They're what I call fixers. You know, if something's going wrong and you tell them about it, whoop, right away, they tell you what the solution is to the problem. Of course, that's their solution to your problem. That's their solution to your problem. And sometimes they don't even allow you to tell the whole story about what's going on. They cut you off before you've said what you have to say. You know, it's sort of like this. When I was a physician, if someone came in with an abscess in their arm, unless you allowed the abscess to drain completely, the antibiotics wouldn't work. So when you start to listen to someone who has a problem, as painful as it may be, and boy, when Belle tells me a problem she has, it's really painful. It's really painful. But I've learned not to jump in with a solution. Let her tell me the whole story. Let her get rid of all that's troubling her. So listening is one of the great gifts we can bestow on other people. Here's something beautiful that Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, has to say. Listening is the greatest gift we can give to another human being, to be listened to really be heard, to really do that for someone, to know that they're taken seriously. That is a redemptive act. You know, in case you need some inspiration to want to listen, You know, there's a beautiful teaching that the mystics in our tradition love. Of course, I'm a little bit of a mystic as well as a scientist, and I like this teaching. It's Martin Buber's teaching about listening. He says that when two people are really engaged in serious conversation and listening to each other, God dwells in the space between them. So sometimes when you're in this place where it may be even painful to listen to someone, know that God is dwelling in that space, and that can inspire you to sit in that space longer and let everything else to be revealed. So this is what the Shema is trying to teach us. It says a lot of things about loving God, but I think it's also trying to teach us to listen. If we want to make the world whole, if we want to make the world one, we have to listen. And there's one other final thought I want to talk about listening. It's not only important to listen to others, but it's even more important to listen to yourself. We all have intrinsic wisdom, and it's important to keep accessing that. There's this great story in the Torah about Elijah. You know, he has this challenge with the priests of Baal. I won't even talk about the challenge because it's really cool, but I'll do that another time. And he gets in a lot of trouble because he challenges these prophets, and they're chasing him, and he hides in a cave. And it said that the angels of God attend to him in the cave. And finally God speaks to him and says, "Go on the mountain, Elijah, and I will speak to you there." And there's a great earthquake. And there's all sorts of fires on the mountain. And God says, "Elijah, I'm not in the earthquake. I'm not in the fire. I'm in the still small voice." That's what you need to learn to listen to. So, it's a reminder that there's a lot of noise out there. There's media that distracts us. There's the TV that distracts us. But we really need to listen to that small, still voice deep inside of us, because it's the place of our deepest wisdom. It's the place where the loving energy of the universe is trying to communicate to us. Some people just call it intuition. Well, maybe it's just intuition, but it may be something bigger than that. So my hope for all of us, this rich day full of wonderful liturgical moments and teachings, leads us to a place where we are open at peace. And if we are open at peace, we can all listen and hear the truth that is being sent into the universe each day. This truth is the key to knowing what steps you need to complete tshuva, to complete the work of returning your best and true self to the world. The Shema is one of our most important instructions. Shema Yisrael, Shema Yisrael. Listen, God wrestlers, because this is one of the keys to healing ourselves and perfecting the world. And may you all be sealed for a good year, filled with good health, joy, and the presence of supportive community both here at Beth Or and in everywhere you go.